Families that looked completely ordinary from the outside but hid unimaginable horrors behind closed doors. From the bloody benders luring travelers into a deadly trap to the Wests turning a family home into a crime scene, these are the neighbors no one ever suspected. Terrifying families that could have easily lived right next to you. Back in the 1870s, a family of 4 settled down in a remote part of Kansas. They built a wooden cabin and opened it up as a little inn for travelers. The family consisted of a mother, a father, a son, and a daughter named Elvira who, fun fact, claimed she could speak to spirits. People traveling through the wilderness would stop by for a hot meal and a bed for the night, but they had no idea what kind of trap they were walking into. The family set up this big canvas curtain right in the middle of the main room to split the dining area from the private living area. When a guest sat down at the table, the benders would guide them to a specific seat. That seat positioned the guest's head right against the curtain. While the traveler was busy eating, one of the bender men would step out from behind the curtain and smash them over the head with a heavy hammer. Once the guest was down, another family member would step in with a blade to finish the job. They'd take whatever valuables the traveler had on them and drop the body through a hidden trap door into the cellar underneath the house. Eventually, people in the area started noticing that a lot of folks traveling down that specific trail were disappearing. When a search party finally went out to check the inn, they found the cabin was completely empty. The family had just packed up and left. Searchers continued looking around the property and soon they noticed the soil in the orchard was disturbed. They started digging, and that's when they pulled up dozens of bodies. The family, who became known as the Bloody Benders, were never caught though. Sante Kimes and her son Kenneth Jr. traveled all over America pretending to be wealthy elites. In reality, they were just a couple crooks, but highly organized ones. Sante spent years teaching her son how to copy signatures, lie to authorities, and steal identities. He specialized in finding wealthy targets, weaseling into their lives, and taking everything they owned through fraud. Her most famous plot happened in New York City in 1998, where they decided to target an elderly woman named Irene Silverman. Irene owned this massive multi-million-dollar mansion in Manhattan and rented out apartments inside the building. Kenneth used a fake name to rent a room there, pretending to be this polite, quiet businessman. While living under the roof, the mother and son spent weeks spying on Irene, learning her daily routine, and secretly copying her signature to forge documents that transferred the mansion into their own names. When Irene suddenly went missing, staff noticed that the polite new tenant had vanished as well. Police ended up stopping the mother and son in a stolen car for an unrelated check, and inside the vehicle they found Irene's keys, personal papers, and the forged deed to the mansion. Kenneth eventually admitted that they'd attacked Silverman inside her home and had hidden her body in a plastic bag at a construction site. The body was never found, but both spent the rest of their lives behind bars. And again, this wasn't their only crime, far from it, but thankfully it was their last. In 1979, 3 brothers named Linwood, James, and Anthony Briley turned their quiet neighborhood in Richmond, Virginia into a zone of absolute terror. They started out doing small thefts around the area, but they quickly became incredibly violent and depraved. The brothers started breaking into houses right on their own streets, targeting ordinary folks, watching TV, cooking dinner, etc. They weren't just there to steal stuff either. They seemed to genuinely enjoy terrorizing their victims. They'd force their way inside, tie up sometimes entire families, and keep them trapped for hours. During these home invasions, they used heavy tools, blocks of wood, and blades to severely harm their victims before taking jewelry, vehicles, and cash. They targeted anyone from elderly couples to young parents. The community was so terrified that residents stopped turning on their lights at night and just locked themselves indoors. The police finally caught the brothers after finding stolen items from a bunch of homes stashed inside their own family house. And this next group needs no introduction. In the late 60s, Charles Manson gathered a group of young followers and moved them to a remote desert property called the Spahn Ranch. He formed a tightly controlled cult, acting as a father figure while completely twisting their minds. Manson convinced his followers that this massive world-ending conflict was about to happen, and he ordered them to commit terrible acts to trigger it. Over a series of nights in 1969, groups of his followers broke into homes in wealthy Los Angeles neighborhoods. Their most famous target was, of course, actress Sharon Tate. After ending their victims' lives, the followers left terrifying messages written in blood on the walls. The Manson family really set the standard for what many people think of when they hear the word cult. What really terrified people at the time, and even today, is how normal these young followers looked from the outside. They were pretty much everyday kids who'd completely surrendered their minds to this dangerous leader, willingly carrying out brutal acts of violence before finally being caught and locked away. David and Catherine Birnie were a couple living in a perfectly ordinary suburban house in Perth, Australia during the 80s. To their neighbors, they seemed like a typical working-class couple going about their daily lives, but in reality, they transformed their home into a hidden chamber of horrors. Together, the couple would drive around looking for young women walking alone. They tricked the women into their car, bring them back to their house, and chain them up in the bedroom. And over the course of several months, they kept multiple victims trapped in their home, subjecting them to severe physical harm before taking their lives and burying them in a nearby forest. Catherine actively participated in every part of the plan, helping her husband trick the victims and ensure they couldn't escape. Her secret operation finally came crashing down when a young woman named Kate Moyer managed to slip out of her chains while the couple was distracted. She jumped out of a window, ran to a nearby police station, and led officers right back to the house, finally bringing an end to the couple's horrific spree. This next case is really up there on my list of sickening, outright disturbing cases. Fred and Rosemary West lived in a townhouse at 25 Cromwell Street in Gloucester, England. They raised a family there, and to anyone passing by, it looked busy and chaotic, especially because they ran a bed and breakfast, but there was nothing out of the ordinary, at least not to the naked eye. Behind the brick walls, the husband and wife were working together to carry out a decades-long string of absolutely horrific crimes. They targeted young women. The couple would trap them inside the house, subject them to unimaginable things, and ultimately take their lives. They used the basement, the garden, and the spaces under the floorboards to hide the remains. The truth only started coming to light in 1992 when police began investigating the couple. And when investigators started tearing up the floorboards, digging into the backyard, they found the remains of 12 young women. Fred took his own life in his cell before his trial, while Rose was given a life sentence. She's currently serving her time at Newhall Prison in Flockton, West Yorkshire. In the 70s, a strict military group took control of the government in Chile. A man named Armando Fernandez Larios was part of a special military squad known as the Caravan of Death. So this squad traveled around the country, eliminating anyone who opposed the new rulers. It took a young man named Winston Cabello and several others out to a remote area and took their lives. For decades, the government hid the truth from the Cabello family, lying about what happened and passing laws to protect the military from facing any consequences. The Cabello family spent years, of course, fighting for answers, eventually finding Winston's hidden burial site. But the most unsettling part is where Armando went. He fled Chile, moved straight into this quiet, middle-class gated neighborhood in Miami, and for over 10 years he lived an entirely normal suburban life. Worked at a local auto body repair shop. His neighbors saw him as polite, quiet, having absolutely no idea who he actually was. The Cabello family eventually tracked him down in Florida and used American courts to file a massive lawsuit against him, exposing his past to the community and finally winning a judgment against him for what he'd done. That's been the video. I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next one.